Kate Falcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Tarot. It's time for our Saturday book. We're continuing our book from last week. We did videos 1 and 2. Today we're going to do The Search for Hidden Sacred Knowledge by Dolores Cannon, and this is video number 3. Let's just get started here. This seemed to be a very popular book, and it's very interesting. I love books that have personal narratives of, like therapy visits or experiences, like near-death experiences. Any kind of personal narrative like that in a short format is always really interesting, I think. And these are wild. These are really challenge your perception of reality, which is the whole point. So this is chapter 14, Teaching the Knowledge. In 2008, Cannon had to do some sessions in a motel because her office got flooded. And her client's name was John. And once he went into a trance, he found himself in New Mexico, in a small town. He was a self-taught doctor. She calls him a naturopath, but it's the 1800s, and really, I don't think you had to do more than just hang out a shingle. It was a long time before medical training was formalized. Not that there wasn't medical school, there weren't medical schools around, but there was no legislation requiring any particular kind of professional licensing for a very long time. Before that in Europe, it was barbers, so things were a little bit better. He tells her that he uses crystals and herbs, and shared a lot of native healing knowledge and led a very uneventful life. And Cannon makes the point of saying that one of the things that reassured her that people were not making stuff up or fantasizing or hallucinating or whatever was that these lives were almost always really unremarkable. They weren't Cleopatra, they weren't Napoleon, they weren't anybody famous, they weren't anybody important, they were nobody's boss, nobody's king, and many times they didn't even know the larger context of the time period in which they lived. So they might be a farmer in the 1850s and not know, in Europe, and not know the larger historical events of the time at all, because during those times a lot of people didn't know what was going on. So she takes him to his next life, because this life's a doctor's too boring, and he finds himself on the top of the flat pyramid top in Egypt. And he said that people come to him, he's a priest, and people come to him for help and healing. So there's kind of a theme in his incarnations. He senses that he's had non-human training, so help from elsewhere. He calls them his brothers from the stars, and he knows that he has psychic abilities. These are light beings that use crystals, that download knowledge into the crystals and help to transmit it, which physicists are now saying is the situation with our DNA. So how about that? They claim that they're only there to help train him, and they picked him because he had intentions for a higher cause, that he was different from most ordinary people. They also taught him astronomy. They could manifest in his view as an orb, or they could look like humans, or a combination of light and form. They were essentially made of pure love, intelligence, and compassion, and their goal was that they came here to help and to teach. They taught in different ways, like they did a class with crystal and light, and special rooms in a forest facility and in an airship. And they showed him the big picture, as he called it, the master plan, which he wasn't telling Cannon too much about. There's only so much she's supposed to know at one time, and only so much she's supposed to know overall. He learned it very, very quickly. He called it like speed learning. And the way she describes it is they beamed him up essentially onto his ship in a beam of light. And it was like he became one of them. No, like he was one of them and he became a human. He agreed to come down as a human, even though he was really what they were. This crystalline knowledge was downloaded into his crystalline structure, so he carried the knowledge in his body. And it appears that that's what our DNA does. It encodes information in mathematical ways. You can see I really understand this. That there are patterns in our DNA encoded that are not mathematical constructs that occur randomly in nature, that they are intelligently created. This is pretty much an accepted thing now with people that are doing cutting edge genetic studies. He said he was born on Earth and he had to be ready physically to prepare to hold the knowledge. So what we're talking about is an understanding of a higher dimension, a higher vibrational level. And it's internalized, and therefore it is higher vibratorially. And our bodies are not necessarily constructed to withstand that level of energy. So he had to be tweaked over time before he was even ready. And the information was given to him in pieces as soon as he was mature enough to handle, like physically mature enough to handle the vibration. They had to put the knowledge into crystals within him telepathically, and they used computers on their ship. The intention was to release it to him and to provide him with pure intention and motive to be able to use this knowledge and apply it to help people. So, in summary, they had knowledge of a higher spiritual plane. And they were able over time in increments as he matured and as they slowly prepared him to accept this information that was encoded in crystalline form into his body, internalized, to provide him with a greater knowledge and understanding so that he could help people on the planet. He was going to teach them and they would help him to carry this on. So he helped after he did healing, farming, trading. He helped with water storage and disputes and how they were treating the earth. And all of this was to help create a better functioning on the earth in society. And that's one of the big jobs of these elevated beings. So everything he's told, tells Canon, everything is energetic. They're just vibrations at different frequencies. And we now know in physics this is true. Light, color, music, matter, it's all just vibrating molecules. So he was a compassionate leader because he was kind of an elevated being. He tried to train others to do the same thing and to be experts in different areas. And he did succeed in that somewhat, and he left when he felt that his job was done and society had improved and he got beamed back up. And he had spent 20 years doing this mission. Okay, chapter 15, Lemuria and the Portal. So Canon is a new client. Her name is Shirley. She's a psychologist at a mental health hospital. And in trance, she described stepping into shallow water with a gold reflection. And she saw that she was a young man in a white tunic with a guide and a healing staff. So this staff had purposes other than just, a weapon or a crutch. It was healing and guiding. She used it in now he's a he. He used it in ceremonies, and it helped to direct energy to channel from the source to him. And Canon is told that this person has direct communication. The energy comes directly from source into the person's body with the help of this staff. So it's like, I guess, an antenna or receiver. And this is all done at a nearby temple. This young man lived farther away, and he came to heal intentionally at the temple. He says he'd feel a call to be pulled towards the temple, and he'd come from afar and answer that call. The temple is described as a tall, skinny stone pyramid with a crosshatch boards at the top and a cloth at the doorway, like a, my handwriting, kind of like a tent cloth. And inside, it's big and long and is really light because of the quality of the stone. Light's coming from it. There are people in it, families, and he describes going to the center of this pyramid with his staff and bringing healing energy for the people. So this is like a huge healing room where people come, and specifically healing can be done there through him, and he gets it from up there. His father taught him how, and he says he has to focus his mind and get the energy from the air to the staff and then be able to put it out. He says he feels tingly like music, and he says it fills up the space and raises the vibrations in the room. And he says the people don't necessarily have to be sick, they just have to want higher vibration, what he calls a brightening. The building's designed to hold the energy for a while for the benefit of the people, and when the intensity of it lowers, then they leave. He says, I go back home to the shallow water. Moving ahead in the trance state, he sees other people coming and says, okay, it's time to go. I'm out of here. It's not safe. There are many people here coming from elsewhere. The temple people have been run out of their home, and they have to flee with him. So something came to their home, a person or feelings, something uncomfortable, heavy, and the energy pushed them away. They actually felt repelled by it. It was a negative energy source, and he says it'll kill us if we stay. So they go into the water, and actually the water is a portal. And he says you step into it and you become air or light or energy. And it takes us to the temple together on another planet or another dimension where the people will be safe. But he says he's negatively affected by the energy, and he can't go to the temple and can't get back into his body. So he's going to, essentially die because his body is vacated. The negative energy is sent by the rulers of the planet to control the world, and they don't like that he says they don't like that we can leave. They want to stop us and hold us in their thrall. So he got touched by the energy, and he said the negative energy, he said he just let go and abandoned his body to die. Shirley, the client, says that she says the important message that she remembers from this session is that we're not alone, and that we're all in this together. This is so crucial. And if you happen to see the conversation I had with Frank Schaefer, by the way, a lovely person. Oh my God, one of those people that just, that you don't meet too often in your lifetime. Just an elevated being. And just his vibes were really positive. Let's just get all hippy-dippy about it since he's an old hippie. We kind of concluded our conversation with that same sentiment, that doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are or your ideology or your philosophy, they all agree on the only important thing is that we're all one, we're all united, we're all connected, and we need to extend love and compassion to each other. It's very simple. All the theologians and philosophers that tie themselves into knots, it's really very simple. So Shirley, client, sorry, I got distracted. The client is still affected by the negativity of this experience, and she says it reminds her of what she used to be. She says the lifetime that she's describing was in Lemuria, which is kind of like Atlantis, only different, and the negative energy field destroyed Lemuria on purpose. So that's why they fled. They felt it coming. The human form was less solid then, and had great mental powers. And you know, if you follow these books, if you listen to these books and you choose to accept the premise of the books, very similar to Hermetic philosophy, as we evolve and mature spiritually, we vibrate more quickly, and the speed of our vibration determines the solidity of our material existence. And so eventually we no longer would exist in a three-dimensional form of solid matter, that we would go to a different vibratory plane. And this is ancient philosophical belief, laws of the nature. So many different cultures and belief systems agree with this. I think it's worth considering. And now this is what Dolores Cannon has been told in her sessions, that the human form was less solid and had greater mental powers, because with a speedier vibratory level, which is helped along by positive energy of love and cooperation, it's, you know, it's simple even if it's not, come great abilities. These abilities rely on a higher, an ascended vibratory level. I don't really have all the vocabulary to explain this, but I think that's about what they're getting at. I'm learning this too. Chapter 16, The Priestess at Atlantis. So she has a client named Nina, who is a special education teacher, and in her trance, she finds herself on a sandy oasis with a doorway opening in front of her. Just, you know, there's a door. And she said she could watch people going in and out, and it seemed to her like she was invisible to them. But then this door shut. And she says this is a portal. It's a place of rest, a place of vacation. And she recognizes that she's dressed in some sort of short Egyptian style outfit. Oh, my heater was on. I'm sorry. It regulates itself. It just turned itself off. I'm sorry. Let me turn it off here. I don't know how distracting the sound is. She describes herself as a middle-aged female with curly red hair, elaborate jewelry, elaborate headpiece. They all indicate status. She realizes that she's a priestess and that she has traveled to this place by ship that goes in or above the water. So I'm getting that it's not your regular run-of-the-mill sailboat. And it's smaller, and it's just for short distances. It holds 5 people, but it can go underwater and above the water. So she says their home is beautiful. It's an island with small houses, and her house is a little bigger, that people come there. She has crystals and special kinds of flowers in water, and tubs of oil and herbs to lie in. So she's some kind of healer priestess. She says they come if they're sick, and she heals and teaches others and how to heal. And her jewelry gives her protection. So it's not just decoration, and it's not just status. It has a function. The colors give different healing vibrations, and she also burns herbs for the fumes, and she does incantations as well. So she's using sound and herbal smoke type energy and crystals and colors all working together. She says that at this time, if you show abilities as a child, you're taught. They're called children of light. And she says, I love what I'm doing. It's a big responsibility. She's moved forward by canon to a later important date in her life, and she finds herself at a ceremony to the moon that's done twice a year for guidance. And she says there's a circle of people in a sort of an open theater area. She's on a stage, and she's bringing in the energy of the feminine from the moon. She says men are there to hold the light, but women are there to carry it for peace. Women are the healers, and they're asking the moon for help help in planting, helping keep people together. She says there's a ruler, but the ruler doesn't live there. This ruler comes and goes in a triangular craft with colored lights. It's very quiet. It doesn't sound very loud. She says this ruler looks different. He has a longer head, and he's taller and has lighter hair, and communicates telepathically, does not use his voice. She says most of them are telepathic. Moving forward by canon, she comes to a period of extreme darkness, heavy clouds. She feels sad and confused. She doesn't know where she is. So canon moves her back again a little bit, and she sees stuff shooting out of the earth that's sooty, and that the earth is shaking, and people are in ships, and she's actually watching this tectonic geological activity from a ship. Many people are on the ground that did not get into the ship, and so she escaped with 2 women and 1 man who were people with knowledge, and she said that she knows that people were afraid, but she felt very peaceful because she already knew ahead of time that this was going to happen, that it would be okay, that the planet will be fine, and they're going to land someplace else. She's not sure if it's Earth or a completely different place. She says the event was a natural set of changes that were inevitable. There were some survivors of Atlantis who made it to Egypt. Now, how many times have we heard this? It's kind of phenomenal. And they hid the knowledge from Atlantis in the walls of a pyramid. This is, sacred geometry and mathematical information encoded in crystals. And this can only be found by people who have the right vibration to access it. They had some residual mental abilities from Atlantis. They land in a sandy place that has mountains behind it. They become their own tribe. They have their own religion. They have fruit trees and food to live on, and they have kept up their knowledge. She says they're sad about the destruction that happened. She knew that she couldn't change it, and she just had to accept that it was going to happen. Canon moves her forward, and she finds herself going up steps to a stone temple. Once again, looked like Egypt. And she said she'd help the people to build it. And then goes to the last day of her life. She knows it's time to go, but she's sad to leave those she loves behind. There's nothing physically wrong with her. It's just time to go. She's many moons older. She's being called home, and she watches her body being put in this temple. And the lesson of this lifetime was to teach and to help. So this is Nina who's still talking. She has a job to share this knowledge now in this lifetime, and knowledge that she has for the survival of the planet. She says there will be many parts of our planet that will be destroyed, and the knowledge will save some people. So apparently I have a little tidbit here to read. People will have lost the love, and people who do not believe that we're all connected, that'll be the problem. People who will not love our earth or each other. So people will cause this, Canon asks her, and it's not a natural thing. And the response is, it'll be both, because it's all intertwined. Because of those who are, I'm going to change the word here, destroying our earth, taking all the things out of the ground and not putting it back, and poisoning everyone, and the trees and the birds and the fish and the lakes, and they will not give up their bombs, for they think it is power, but they are wrong. They are so wrong. And the plan is for her to give this information to as many people as possible. And she says we have to fight to get people to work together to bring love. And in 2005, she said this was starting on a small scale, but there are others at this time coming from elsewhere to help from different worlds. We've heard that a million times too. She says many people are here to help. They're not aware consciously. So any one of us, you just never know, could be here to help and be doing it on a subconscious, energetic level, which is really fascinating because I'm cold, sorry, because apparently a lot of this has to do with energy healing, manipulating of energy, which can be done without conscious thought or knowledge. So many people are here, they're not aware consciously, they're being awakened now, and it's happening now. And there's a discussion of the fact that Nina and others have found themselves actually talking in strange languages that nobody seems to be able to identify. Okay, we're on chapter 17, the strange structure. And the new client is Judith, who works for an environmental agency. And she's been having jerking energy in her body. In a trance, she finds herself at a strange structure. There are two staircases meeting at a point at the top, sort of an A-shaped pyramid that have steps going all the way up. And this seems to be outside of a long building that's tan color. She says, I'm in the middle, in a clearing, in a jungle. The trees are like a canopy, and it seems to not have a door. She realizes she's a man, so now I'm going to say he. And a young man in short robe, and he's clean shaven, has dark hair, shiny gold hat with a purpose, we don't know what, has something to do with honing the energy. The energy comes from another dimension, and it concentrates because of this hat, and it affects his brain waves. It focuses the energy in him, and it has something to do in relationship to this building. He actually walks through the wall, and it's because of the energy. And the building is long on the outside and vast, but there's not a lot of space on the inside. It's weird. It's like a optical illusion or something. It has a glow. The space inside is different than what it looks like on the outside. This distortion of space often happens, Canon says, in UFO cases. A small saucer type UFO is described. People will describe going aboard it, and it's larger than the largest city inside. You can't see the end of it. You can't see a horizon in any direction inside. It's like this endless distance, but you're inside this small UFO. Kind of an interesting thing to think about. So this building thing has a glow and an energy in the empty space in the middle, and it's the source of the energy. The hat helps him to connect to it. And it's almost like it's in another dimension, I guess so. So the energy is of high vibration, and it's being infused into him. And he'll know when he's been there long enough, and he'll leave when the energy is inside of him to an adequate amount, whatever that is, he'll know. And it has to do with his intention. He'll form this intention, and he'll be able to walk through the wall. So the structure is a portal into dimensions with energy, and inside it changes your molecular structure. He walks through a forest to a village, and he thinks he makes the hats with the energy that he's, wearing. He makes them. Because of the energy, he's able to make a dark metal shiny, so whatever that means. He finds the job to be not such a big deal. It's so easy for him, but it's a little bit boring. And he makes objects that hold energy for a long time, and they heal. He makes different shaped rods for different healing purposes. And he's got something to do. He moves forward to another time period. It's an important day. There's a large diamond-shaped object in the sky, almost like two pyramids base to base. If you can imagine the bottoms of the pyramid and then the pointy like this. And this object shimmers and hovers and changes subtly back and forth. So there's something energetic going on with it. It is a messenger with waves of energy. It's full of information about what will happen, what they're supposed to do. He is not like the others who take everything for granted. Even when they have these abilities, he's very serious. He's not one to learn how to do his job. There's no one to learn how to do his job when he's gone. No one's interested. They could use the rods as tools to learn to heal with their minds, but they're lazy. They're satisfied to depend on the tools themselves and not their minds. They're not interested in learning, but what will they do when he's gone? They will revert to a more primitive state. He comes from a place where the diamond is from. It's been here a long time, and the society has been here a long time, but they're not moving forward because they're not interested in learning. Sounds familiar where I live. He was found by someone as a baby, and he was found in the forest. He was left by beings from the diamond. They're tall, thin, and white. He looks human. He was born on the ship from transcendent humans who lived on the ship. He gets his information as an organic knowing, and he knows that he's going back to the ship to stay. It transports him up like he went through the wall. He just, off he goes. And he's sad because he feels he failed the tall beings. They don't judge him because they know he did the best that he could. So our consciousnesses are not totally in our body, which they now know that's true in physics. But they pop in and out every 2 to 5 years is what this says. So, chapter 18, Atlantis. So Mitchell is this guy with a very large brain, and okay, so in his session, he is told he has a large brain, and he's resisting this from a fear of failure and being out of control. So she was able to bring him to a place where he started talking, and it was obviously about Atlantis and the failings of that place. They didn't have emotional mastery to stick with their energy and to work the energy the way it needed to be done through the crystals for the good of everybody. They directed energy into crystals with their minds, but they feared temptations were interfering with their ability. Well, some people were doing it right, and others, the people doing it properly, feared that others were doing it incorrectly, letting temptations interfere, like ego and desire for power and control. He feared that he didn't have the same amount of power as those with the negative agendas, and his ego got in the way of the technology working properly. The ego-ish group were trying to harness the earth energy for military control and not for the higher good. And ego is not in line with reality. Ego is not good. And they were playing with what they shouldn't be playing with. Now, his group, the good guys, were trying to balance the energy of the earth, but these egotists were interfering. They were putting, the good group were putting harmony and loving energy into the crystals, but then things got out of balance. His intention was good. He did the best that he could when this negative and positive energy collided, and it was out of his control to prevent this. And it rearranged the earth because the negative was more powerful. So you just think of it, as the temperance card. The balance of everything got skewed. Atlantis was torn asunder in a process, and she's talked about this before in her other books, and it had to do with some sort of energetic tool involving a large crystal, and it was doing a lot of good things for transportation and for energy and for light and for power, etc. Like not electrical power, but power grid type power. But people were getting ahead of themselves and thinking that they were able to do more that they shouldn't have been doing, and it exploded or something. So Atlantis got torn apart, and At first, there was an immediate loss of souls, but then the rest were destroyed over a period of time. And consciousness of all of this was wiped in order just to start over, and the planet was covered by the seas. This ought to sound really familiar, like the last book we read, Dream the Dream, or the Escaping from Eden. And so this entity tells Dolores Cannon, the earth is a school. It has different classrooms. Different classrooms carry different frequencies to support different expressions of culture, knowing, creativity. Each culture has its own music, its own language, its own frequencies, and just that's what's going on here, that we're here to learn and to evolve. Other planets went through similar processes as Atlantis went through, and this misuse of the crystal energy was concentrated with the wrong intention, not for the good, and it led to destruction. Okay, chapter 19. I'm kind of thinking I can probably finish this book in one little bit more lengthy video, and then in the next video we'll read cards and do a book drawing. Chapter 19, The Hidden Records of Atlantis. So Julie, a new client, is a student, and she has questions about what career path to take. In trance, she finds herself in a yellow sandy desert. It's warm. There's a powerful pyramid with heat coming off of it, and she thinks, is that an antenna on the top? There's something on the top. My dog is getting into trouble. She sees herself as a young man in his 20s wearing rope sandals, white cloth outfit with reddish skin, dark hair, golden bracelets, and a pendant on his neck. He's trying to find his way inside to look inside this pyramid-like object for, quote-unquote, the library books. It's a special brick that's being used to, if you push it, the wall, it'll open, and it opens to a stairway and down a passage to a wooden door. And she has the key for it around her neck. That's what the pendant is. He goes into a large room with high ceilings and lots of books, and it glitters. So this person is the guardian of the room's secrets. He also uses his mind to write the history of the past civilizations on stone in an alphabet that he doesn't understand. He just does it. And this is all stored in the library. These books are about civilization that was destroyed by water. His job is to preserve the history of that. He also wrote in a village near the pyramid, and they didn't know anything about the work that was done in the pyramids. He was a scribe for important villagers and had a normal family life. But he also wrote fiction books, but they were actually the true history of time past. And they were very popular, but they were characterized as fiction. Moving forward now, he's old, he dies, and the pendant and the guardian job go to another man, and there's no more stone writing. It's been done. Let's see here what this is. So what happened here? He said, well, people lost respect. They no longer respected one another. There was too much competition, not enough brotherhood. They no longer loved one another. They wanted to prove themselves better than one another. They disrespected nature as well, and nature did not like that. There were earthquakes and much water, too much water, and this is what led to the destruction of that civilization. And the records will be found that he wrote. They will be found when people are ready to find them. So he dies, and his body is in a boat with candles, and he's requested to go back to where he came from, the water. His job has been to bring and safeguard knowledge, which is still safe, still protected, and it had been Atlantis. The pyramid still exists, but a different pyramid was built on top of it. So there's the old pyramid that's been built on top of, and it's in a different shape. It looks like a cat, the old one, with the face of a ruler, and it's meant to be a cat, but it was changed when men took over. Kind of have to wonder, is he talking about the Sphinx? There's too much power in this knowledge. It will be found, but the knowledge will stay secret. So they'll find something, they won't know what it is exactly that they've found. Oh, I guess I remembered this and didn't realize I remembered it. Edgar Casey says that the Sphinx sits on the Hall of Records. And there are tunnels below the Sphinx. They have not been explored because it has often been full of water, but the entrance is protected vibrationally. Chapter 20, Atlantis Experimentation. A woman named Amber comes to Dolores Cannon. She's a nurse, but she's burnt out by stress, and that's why she's there. In trance, she is a 40-year-old man in the crow's nest of some sort of ship with big white sails. It stops at a jungle island. They have been at sea 30 days. They needed food and water, so they were glad to find the island. The group went ashore, and they were attacked by natives, and many were killed. It was an ambush. They were hit with poison darts and spears. There was a skeleton crew left. The captain was weak, a coward. There was not enough food left on board. The person talking about this as the past, was one of the very last ones. The whole crew died. In a different life, Cannon takes her through. She's in the courtyard of an abbey, and she's a young nun in a white habit in a wheelchair. She had been thrown from a horse, and she was given to the convent as damaged goods. And the nuns were going to take care of her, but she doesn't like it. She's bored, and she wants to leave. Moving forward, there's a big fuss because somebody is coming to this abbey, and she's hidden in bed and drugged with a tea that makes her very, very sleepy. And the somebody that was coming was a big time donor, and they didn't want this donor to know about this nun in a wheelchair. And she realizes that they're really trying to poison her by giving her more and more of this tea. She overheard them talking about it, and it's because her father is giving them gold to do it. The Mother Superior and one other nun force her to drink this. She's already under the influence. So she's dying from this drug. Her father had died, and there was no more money to come in, so she became useless to them, and they just decided to kill her. In trance, she discovers that her present knee problems came from her past life in Atlantis. She'd been part of an experiment. Her legs, I forgot about this, were replaced with animal legs. It was very painful. But they thought that they were helping because she had damaged legs, and they thought that they were giving her something. But it was unsuccessful. Most of them had good intentions trying to do this. It wasn't as horrendous as it might appear. But there were ones with bad intentions who kept at experiments. Chapter 21, the original Stonehenge. There are many ancient temples, and most of them had open roofs to see the stars and for energy. The knowledge was gathered from studying the sky, and it was kept secret. They had the use of telescopes from ETs. They needed the stars to calculate the passage of time, the passage of the seasons, for the growing of crops. The original temples were built as observation points by the ETs. The ETs brought this knowledge and helped create Atlantis, knowledge of how to use the mind to levitate, knowledge that was lost after Atlantis was inundated. Today, she's told, the veil is thinning again, that psychic reawakening is happening, and this knowledge is returning. The temples were also markers for UFOs to come. Stonehenge and Newgrange were the same. There's some seriously powerful energy at Newgrange. When I know I've mentioned this, but it was remarkable. I went with no expectations. I really knew very little about it. I mean, I knew, you know, it was some sort of archaeological, ancient, you know, pagan religious thing. That's all I knew. And I was absolutely astounded by the energy inside these mounds, because you get to go into them. It was really incredible. If you ever have the chance to go to any kind of an ancient monolithic type of discovery, you know, archaeological site, I think it's really worth it. I think I would love to be able to access crop circle, because apparently there's orbs and energy, and very interesting. Anyway, the stones in places like Newgrange and Stonehenge were storing, these constructions were storing intelligence, and they helped to mark planetary movements. They have more than one use. People in Atlantis were highly advanced, and the ones who survived went to Egypt and other places, but significantly Egypt. And it defies logic that this was done by humans so primitive, you know, the kind of constructions that we find were done by humans so primitive that they didn't really know agriculture or livestock. It defies logic. They learned from advanced beings, and these ETs could harness the power of the mind, levitate stone, and manipulate energy. Every culture talks about this. These beings from the sky, as we know from Escaping from Eden. The ETs did not foresee human greed for power, a little flaw in our DNA. These priests that had knowledge were killed, and the knowledge was lost. And the ETs really couldn't interfere anymore. They couldn't return to intercede, because there are rules of the universe about interfering with free will. They can set up a situation, but they can't make us choose. So she's told we're the only planet in the universe that's been given free will, and that's why we're called the Grand Experiment. Then there's the prime directive of non-interference. Once a civilization has been established, you cannot interfere with the development of that civilization. The information and devices are given to the people as a gift, and then the higher entities stand back and watch and see how it will be used. It's up to us, the people's free will, what they do with it. And many times we have not used it for the purposes intended. But to return and try to explain it to the people, that would be interference. Providing is one thing. Telling them how to do it is a whole other thing, I guess. Where am I here? Now she's got a client named Sharon, who's a movie double, like a stand-in. And in her trance, she's at Stonehenge when it was still intact. People are very proud of it. People work there. It's bustling. They have rituals to nature. They help align us with the earth, and they keep people peaceful and loving because of the energy. And other humans that are not associated with this tend to be aggressive. There's a portal there, and it connects to other earths where sky energy is aligned, and other parts of the earth where sky energy is aligned. It's all connected. And in the center, in the center of the construction of the stones, a person's spirit will travel to other places. Sharon in trance is a man, middle-aged, in a purple cloak, which symbolizes enlightenment. And she says nature is a kind of portal to peace. And soon there'll be a ritual, and he'll be at the north, and everyone will turn their faces to the north. And he says, I will facilitate this ritual. It's a great honor. The stones are from ancient people, and he was chosen. It made his father mad. He's a light being from Source, very happy to be in a body to experience life on Earth. Moving forward, Canon takes her to the next whatever, and he's in a town that's invaded by hordes of Norsemen, those pesky Norsemen. And he's on a hill trying to channel calm to the villagers to try to bring peace. The Norse live for violence. They're excellent warriors. His people are peaceful, and those who went to welcome the Norsemen are killed. The Norse want to kill quickly, like machines. So he was killed in the center of the circle in dark ritual to carry the killing vibration forward to the future of the earth. This will lead to the destruction of the earth. This is an explanation. The Norse way of negative energy will be amplified and permeate the earth. This traps him in karma. On awakening, Sharon said that the execution contaminated the earth energy. It disturbed and toppled some of the stones. It closed the portal. But it still sits on a vortex and a juncture of ley lines. And as at Asbury, Avebury, I can't read my writing, the power was deliberately destroyed and weakened. She did a tour of sacred sites, and her version does not agree with the historical version. See here what this says. Oh, there's a picture, and it's really not a very good picture of orbs at the site of the stone. Sorry, sneezing. Seems like every time I talk about something really significant, or I read cards, my allergies, my nose just goes crazy. It's not the rest of the time. It's really weird. So there's a photo of orbs taken at the center of the stone today, kind of, but it's not a very good picture. Interesting. This thought occurred to me. Maybe we should read cards about it if I remember. This Norse mythology, the warrior thing, which is a negative energy and detrimental to the earth, according to them. This was picked up by the Nazis. Not entirely. Excuse me. Also by white supremacists. Not entirely. But they do identify with that sort of Scandinavian and Germanic mythological stuff. And I wonder if there's a connection. We'll ask the cards. So chapter 22, Mount Vesuvius and the destruction of Pompeii. So a woman named Barbara goes into trance, and she finds herself in a large city with cobblestone streets and beautiful buildings. She's a young girl, 11 or 12. There are lots of people going about their lives in tunics. Her father is rich. Inside their house are colorful paintings, beautiful mosaics. They pay artists to make these. They have people who cook for them. Her mother directs the servants and slaves and teaches them how to run the house. She doesn't go to school. Her job is to learn to follow her mother around. Moving ahead to the age of 13 or 14, there's chaos, like the world is upside down. Hot air, full of dirt, she can't breathe. The mountain blew up, she says. There are quakes and booming and dirt everywhere. She says, I don't know where to go. There's hot, bad air. She hides in a corner of a room and finds that she leaves her body. She's above it all, and there was nothing that could be done. A lady in light appears to her and takes her somewhere with lots of books to learn. And she said, I never had this opportunity when I was in my body. I'm supposed to absorb information. The leaves on the trees are different, and she'll need to know about these different trees and plants and how to help grow. She's learning about plant healing in these books. She says, sometimes time later, I will need to know how to help plants grow. And she said, I didn't know I could read, actually, and here I am, out of body, able to read. She can't leave until she's learned everything in the books and the books that this old man gives her. they move forward, and she's learned everything, and she enters a baby. She's sent by a group of old men who tell her this is what she has to do because she has a job, a mission, that she needs to help people with her knowledge to grow food. And when she visited Pompeii in this life as Barbara, she said it was a very emotional experience. I can relate to that. It is unbelievable energy in Pompeii and Herculaneum. Unbelievable energy. And I've been to other archaeological sites and not felt that way. These are significant. She's told that a new incarnation is coming for the earth. In the past, it had been one of those, she had been one of those who wanted more and more power and led to the destruction by water. So she contributed to the problem in the past. Chapter 23, Going to Hell. I don't remember this chapter. In 2007, Cannon was in Australia and had a client named Catherine in her 40s who had terrible back pain and was bent over walking with a cane. She's told that her mother never wanted her. She was an accident. She was abused and mistreated. She was told she was not good enough as a child. Her dad denied the paternity, ignored her, ever only in her entire life, ever only spoke 5 sentences to her. She went on to get a psychology degree, but entered into an abusive marriage, and her second marriage was just as bad. She got a job helping abused women, and it was very high stress, and she was re-traumatized by the situation. She stopped working with people and instead did paperwork for this business because the stress was too much. Her father died in his 50s. He was the victim of rage, she said. Her mother was in her 80s, still in her 80s, and very angry, and blamed Catherine for everything. Catherine had had a heart attack and quit her job. So here she comes to Cannon for some kind of advice, and in a trance, she's a young male in a toga at a rocky shore looking at the ocean. She says, I'm afraid of what I'll see back in the city. The mountain exploded. People ran. There was nowhere to go. There was panic. Ash covered everything. Wise men had warned this would happen. People were lazy and lascivious and worshiping demons, and it corrupted the city. So this young guy came to the terrible city to visit his cousins, and he was unsure who to believe, what was the truth, because he was not a part of the city, really. He stayed in the water, away from the smoke, but he said some people were cooked alive in the water. He died from the hot ash. Many died in fear and not knowing what was happening. Their souls were stuck in their body because of their fears, which this is what hell is, apparently. So he was in this hellish place, but it was based in his own fear. And once he got rid of the fear, or if he did not have the fear, he would not experience this hellish thing. So he goes to the light with souls floating up on a beam of light. The beings are pointing the way to him. The fear is gone. The teachings that he had heard were false and caused his fear. And now he says he's in a beautiful place with no fear, no guilt, no pain. He said, my soul is alive. I'm not in hell. I'm not damned. That people need to be taught the truth and about God and everything else. And their learning has been stopped. That they don't reincarnate until they're better prepared, and this slows them down their evolution. Their potential is being restored, and eventually they'll be ready. A class is created to prepare them to go back to the earth as souls and to stay connected to the truth even when they're in the body, which is really a challenge. It's very hard to do. So he gets help in this school situation to choose life that's good for the larger social group and good for his soul. And he goes not to Earth, but to a place to learn science and to help many other planets. And he goes on a ship. He travels between dimensions. On his last day, his body dissolves and he enters into a golden light, which is available in the universe to heal. Catherine believes that, as him, that God wanted us to suffer in his name. This is her religious belief. And this is a broken, shriveled heart is what is going on with her. But now, because of what she learned in this session of trance regression, she can heal because she set aside those wrong beliefs. Her daughter Julia is an ICU nurse and says that people die in fear, that nobody is perfect. No one is going to die and think, oh, well, I've been perfect in this life, nothing to worry about. But hell was a creation of the 2nd and 3rd century used by clergy of the early church to control people. And it's not true. The only thing that holds you back after you die is your own fear. And if you can acknowledge that you might have fear and try to understand it and face it, you're prepared. And if you're prepared, you may still have some doubts, uncertainties, fears, but it's not like going into it blindly full of fear. Nothing to be afraid of. Chapter 24, hiding Jesus's teachings. So she's in Ojai. I thought that was the word, and I used to live near Ojai, and I thought, wait a minute, what am I reading here? She's in Ojai. It's a little town, kind of between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, a little bit inland. It's a nice place. Canon is there teaching a class, and she wants to demonstrate on a student who volunteers. Her name is Betsy. And in a trance, she says she's confused. It's dark. She gets no images at all at first, and then goes to a past life where she's a nun in an isolated French community. The women come from Jerusalem with hidden knowledge of Jesus. He was their teacher. He told them to leave after he died to protect his teaching, and they walked most of the trip. So they spent time with him in Jerusalem. He warned them to go so that after he died, his knowledge would not be lost, and they left to protect the knowledge. They had secret teachings that the men didn't get, and she said they were jealous of it. They hated the female leader. The men's job was to spread the verbal teaching. The women's job was to protect the secret writings. Jesus visited them after his death to teach more to them several times, and then he returned to the source. They lived in isolation for many years. Some died, and they needed new members because they were dying off to protect this secret knowledge. The men were still seeking them. They said to protect them, but that wasn't what the men were looking for. The men were jealous of their power. So to protect the teachings, they buried them in several places in France. And Le Duce, LeBlanc, some name like that she wasn't sure. And a knight helped them. And on the day of her death, which was very old, she said she feared the beauty of the teachings would be lost. That Christians today don't teach the truth. That what they're being taught to believe about Jesus and the Bible, that it's not true. And that God is within and everything is light. We are light. And you know, they've recently discovered that inside of our DNA is mathematical information in crystalline form and light. I can't explain it, but that's what I've read. Okay, so these pages are sticking together. There we go. According to Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice in The Power of the Magdalene, the hidden story of the women disciples, Mary Magdalene left Israel after the crucifixion on board one of Joseph of Arimathea's ships. Apparently he was related to Mary, the mother of Jesus, and he was a rich tin merchant. Her party landed in southern France, which was then known as Gaul. It stated that there would be a balance of the male and female disciples. There were 6 circles of 12, making 72 male, and 6 circles of 12, making 72 females, a total of 144. Mary Magdalene was part of the first of 12 female disciples. Could this be the same group that Betsy, this client, is mentioning? Also, within this text in the book, Stewart defines the Gnostics as a loosely knit movement which was active during the very earliest years of Christianity. They believed in a mystical state of deep knowing, or gnosis, in which the knower and the known merge and become one. In the year following the execution of St. James in Jerusalem, the persecutions were amplified. Lazarus and Martha were thrown into prison, and Mary Magdalene, having wanted to visit them, was made prisoner as well, along with other members of the Christian community of Bethany, St. Maximin, St. Marcel, St. Susan, and St. Sidonius. The Jews, being afraid of the crowd if they were to execute the prisoners, instead placed them in a boat without a sail or a rudder, and a great ship towed them offshore and abandoned them in the open sea. Singing and praying, they found themselves landing on the shores of Gaul at the place called Sainte-Marie de la Mer. The trip had been made at a miraculous speed. I think they intend to use the word miraculous in its true definition. They traveled by land to Massalia, which is Marseille, where they were given a good welcome. They preached the gospel, and Lazarus, in his capacity as a bishop, baptized many people. Mary Magdalene retired to a cave in the mountains which was difficult to access, and there she lived in severe penance. Martha went to Avignon and Tarascon. St. Mary Magdalene died near a place called Tegulata, St. Maximin, and on the site where the sarcophagus of St. Mary Magdalene was found during excavations, it was found. There were tombs from the 1st century made of bricks and tiles also discovered. The presence of Lazarus, Martha, and Mary Magdalene in Provence was recognized as true and belongs to the sacred history of France. It's also well acknowledged by all of Christendom in the East as well as in the West. People came from all of the countries of Europe on pilgrimage to the graves of the holy friends of Jesus. The conclusion is that this is old knowledge. This is nothing new. This has just been protected, occulted, which means hidden, not evil, hidden for its own protection. It threatens the authorities. Many have been killed, and souls have come now. The ones that were killed that were protecting it, their souls have come now. And it's why so many are drawn to light work and healing. And the sacred knowledge continues. And that's what we're exploring. So we're benefiting from the work of these souls. And that's the end of the book. And I will stop here. This is rather long, and I apologize. And I will make another video. You won't know when I make it. I might make it in 2 minutes, and I make it in 2 days. We'll see what I feel like. I'll make a video to read cards about this and to do a book drawing. So I hope you enjoyed this book, and it's not the last Dolores Cannon book we have. And I'm going to raffle this off. So thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I hope you liked it. I will be back. Slanga foil. Slancha.